Good morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Roger Peltier, First Youth Minister for Pastoral Care, and I welcome you here in person and you there at home and online. I welcome you to the First Unitarian Church of Providence, where we love beyond belief. It truly is good to see all of you on this wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous day, don't you think? So that you made your way here is extra special. So thank you for being here and welcome. And again, good morning.
Your worship associate, and I want to invite you to read the chalice lighting words that are printed in your order of service.
This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights our path toward harmony, justice, and hope for all. This morning we invoke the spirit of the sacred with the words of the African-American writer and poet Anna Taylor. Be careful not to judge anyone by the way they look, for when doing so, you're missing out on discovering who they truly are. Trials and triumphs are rarely seen at first glance. Look with your heart at another's heart. There is where you'll see the true beauty. And speaking of beauty, as I said, this is one gorgeous day, and you are one gorgeous congregation. This is the day we have been given. Let us live well into it. Now that we're back to singing hymns, although with our masks on, I've missed this once or twice, masks on, hymn number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. Favorite times in this service, the time when we do our wonderful first you greeting. Look around you, say hello to everyone, big, bold, joyous welcomes. And also say hello to the people at home and online. They're in that camera right there. Hello, people at home. Good to see you all. Good morning, and be seated. The church covenant is in your order of service. Cindy is going to read it with you.
We, the members of the First Unitarian Church of Providence, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, With wonder at the light we know by many names, and with gratitude for our deep connection to each other and to the larger web of existence, covenant, walk together in our search for truth, seeking the paths of wisdom, compassion, and justice.
Now it is time for our joys and sorrows, and we'll begin right away by wishing a speedy recovery to Megan Smith, who was meant to be here today singing. And with that, another candle of joy. I don't know where she is, but this week is the 94th birthday of Temple Fawcett. Where is she? Happy birthday, Temple. A candle and prayers for healing for our friend Malcolm, who has been in decline with COVID for the past 8 days. A candle of gratitude to Mary Frappier for organizing last week's thank you brunch for the caring crew members who operate the meal train and those kind of things when people are sick. Thank you, Mary. A get well candle for Ginny Fox, who had appendectomy surgery last week. A candle of sympathy for the death of Blossom Segaloff. Blossom was in hospice and died peacefully last Wednesday. We wish her and her family the very best. And if you'd like to send cards, and I encourage you to do so, you can get the info from the church office. And as is our tradition when there is mass gun violence, we're going to toll our bell in tribute to the 10 people who lost their lives in Buffalo, New York this week when a gunman shot them down. Like you now to prepare your hearts and minds for prayer and meditation, and to remember as we enter into that if you have lost someone this past year, after we finish the words of the meditation and return to the silence, please raise your hand or stand and join together in silent tribute for those losses, for you at home as well as for those of you here. Please let yourselves relax. Feel your bodies in the seats they're in. Let your shoulders drop. If you're comfortable, close your eyes. Please take a deep breath with me. And another. And one more. These words are from the lyricist Tim Fain. There is hope in our eyes when we truly see each other. Like a sky lit by countless stars, we each possess the brightest spark. There is hope in our voice when we truly hear each other. So-called barriers fall away with every truth we say. There is hope in our hearts when we truly love each other. Every heartbeat calls the same. Each vibrant echo calls us by name, telling us we are sacred, we are strong, we are beautiful, we belong. We are worthy, we are true. There are no borders from this view. There is hope in our eyes when we truly see each other. Amen.
Kindness, the First Gift by John O'Donohue. There is a kindness that dwells deep down in things. It presides everywhere, often in the places we least expect. The world can be harsh and negative, but if we remain generous and patient, kindness inevitably reveals itself. Something deep in the human soul seems to depend on the presence of kindness. The word kindness has a gentle sound that seems to echo the presence of compassionate goodness. When someone is kind to us, we feel understood and seen. There is no judgment or harsh perception directed toward us. Kindness has gracious eyes. It is not small-minded or competitive. It wants nothing back for itself. Kindness casts a light that has the depth of color and patience to illuminate what is complex and rich in difference and diversity. Despite all the potential toward darkness, human hope is based on the instinct that at the deepest level of reality, some intimate kindness holds sway. This is the heart of blessing. To believe in blessing is to believe that our being here, our very presence in the world, is itself the first gift, the primal blessing. As Rilke says, hier zu sein ist so viel. To be here is immense. Given the nature of our living, it is no wonder that our hearts are imbued with the longing for beauty, meaning, order, creativity, compassion, love, and indeed, kindness. We approach the world with this roster of longings and expect that in some way the universe will respond and confirm them. Though sometimes our judgments, often most harsh about ourselves, are wont to lead us astray. As we put our judgments aside, our longings may not be promised, but we somehow know instinctively that a primal benevolence will respond. This is the threshold where we cross from judgment to kindness, and blessing comes alive.
You with the sad eyes, don't be discouraged. Oh, I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all. It's darkness still inside you, make you feel small. But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. Don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful like a rainbow. Show me a smile then. Don't be unhappy. Can't remember when I last saw you laughing. If this world makes you crazy and you take it all you can bear, you call me up because you'll know I'll be there. And I'll see your true colors shining through. I'll see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful like a rainbow. This world makes you crazy. You've taken all you can bear. You call me up because you'll know I'll be there. And I'll see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors, I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors, true colors are beautiful like a rainbow.
of all the possible places, it happened at the DMV. This is where my friend and colleague Kim Harvey got really familiar with her inner Judge Judy. A visit to the Department of Motor Vehicles is not my favorite errand, she exclaimed. For those of you who have not had the pleasure, let's just say it's some combination of waiting in a seamlessly interminable line, only to arrive at the window and be told you don't have all the proper forms of identification with you, even though they presented you with the driver's license they issued and which you are trying to renew. There's always a vague uneasiness that the uniformed security guards hovering around the edges might arrest you at any moment for a traffic violation you didn't know you committed or a parking ticket you didn't know you received and therefore didn't pay. And so it was, anticipating pitched battle, that Kim finally made her way to the serviced window, armed with a sack of papers, tax forms, her passport, her firstborn. And just then, across the way, at another window, she heard a voice asking, "May I give you a hug?" Huh? Really? I heard it distinctly, but I couldn't immediately make sense of the words, since this was probably the very last question I ever expected to hear at the DMV. Kim continues, "I looked up and stared in complete astonishment as the woman behind the counter stood up, came around to where her customer was standing, and opened her arms. Suddenly, the entire room was infused with warmth and friendliness, a difficult thing itself in all that unflattering fluorescent light everywhere. Even the security guards seemed less menacing. The effect of that hug extended outward to the person who was waiting on Kim, who took care of business in record time, and sincerely said to her, "Have a good day." In all her amazement from her earlier frustration, she hadn't noticed these two guys talking over in the corner. One was white, short and built, crew-cut, hard-bitten, maybe in his 40s, and the other was black, maybe in his 20s, with twisted Bantu knots and a bright red pair of Nikes. Not two people you would necessarily imagine seated together in earnest conversation. But that would be a failure of imagination. Indeed, they had struck up a spirited conversation and were deep in it until the younger man was called to the window. What happened? I have no idea. But I'm pretty sure it started with that hug, or maybe it started with the pandemic, reminding us of our loneliness when we're forced apart, reminding us that we really are all in this together. It seems we are forgetting that these days. I don't know about you, but I've noticed a very definite edginess or hostility or something like that just under this very thinly veiled so-called social civility. And I know there's a lot to feel itchy about. People are sick and tired of all these masks and the plain old fear of being sick and tired. Then there's the economy. The other day, I went to D'Angelo's and paid $16 for a small chicken salad sandwich. I couldn't believe it. I asked the clerk to check again. And I'm truly sickened by the threats to the standing, or lack thereof, of Roe v. Wade. What is a person to do? Here's the news, my friends. Here's the whole sermon. It starts with you. It starts with you, with commending to you the spiritual practice to unjudge you. And I know that sounds a little bit like a judgment in and of itself, but please just stay with me a little bit. Now, I know what I'm saying about suspending judgment or reframing or recasting our judgment sounds entirely too simplistic given the mood of most people. But simple does not mean easy. And simplicity, or getting to the stripped down truth of things, is far and away the best place to start anything worthwhile. Now, maybe it's in our nature to be critical. Maybe it's in my nature to be critical. And that can save us sometimes in that fight or flight kind of way. But those aren't really the kind of judgments that we're talking about today, that we're considering here. Today, we're looking at the kinds of attitudes and ideas that perpetuate things like racism, sexism, homo and transphobia, and the like. It might be helpful here to not judge yourself for these things either. These things, these ideas are learned, and they can be unlearned. See? Simple. Only kidding. Recently, a photo of people seated in a seemingly unlikely pairs, like the two guys at the DMV, came to my attention. The caption said, "In Denmark, there are libraries where you can check out a person instead of a book and listen to their life story for 30 minutes. Each person has a title: unemployed, refugee, bipolar, survivor, victim, and so on. But by listening to their stories, by listening to them as people, by reading them, if you will, you realize just how much you really shouldn't judge the book by the cover." This innovative and brilliant project is now active in more than 50 countries. It's called the Human Library. You can Google it. Created in Copenhagen years ago, its motto is "Unjudge Someone." And on their website, they feature the book of the month, which this month was a woman named Yoka. She was born to a Jewish family in the Netherlands, but when she was 2.5, her parents gave her into safekeeping to the Dutch resistance. if you harbored a Jewish person in your home, you would go to the concentration camps as well. So people were always very scared around me, Yoka said. If there was any suspicion on the part of your neighbors, the resistance would come and bring me somewhere else. Yoka lived in 16 different places before she was 5 years old. In addition, her father was virulently anti-Semitic, undoubtedly his trauma response and survival strategy. So Yoka had no idea whatsoever that she was Jewish. Then, when I was 17, she said, during a meeting, a woman asked who wanted to turn on the lights on Saturday when Sabbath-observant Jews don't work. I put up my hand and told her I could do it. No, you can't. You're Jewish. I was like, I'm Jewish? From then on, Yoka began to piece together her story, and now she shares it with many people sitting across from her at the Human Library. It's not about us books, she says. It's about readers confronting their own judgments. Our answers to their questions might help them to look at things in a different way. The fact that they meet us and get a chance to learn from another person's perspective will make it possible for them to change their mind at some point. And as well we, you know it, my friends, a change of mind is always the precursor to a change of heart. Always simple, never easy. Once you start looking for unusual pairings, once you start looking for people and for opportunities, our minds get blown. And to judge someone, you start to spot these people everywhere. There is hope in our eyes when we truly see each other. And our minds really are blown. Just this week, I confess, just this week, I was speaking with someone wearing a stretched, worn-out t-shirt, a little ripped at the neck, grungy, ripped jeans. This was being complemented by torn shoes and very bad teeth. Of course, I got a particular impression of this guy. I thought he was homeless, actually. So imagine my surprise when he offered to help me fix a crooked shutter that he'd noticed on my house, which was getting painted. And my greater surprise, learning of his PhD in architecture and 18th century design. I really had judged the book by the cover, and thusly lost out on an offer of help and connection. I want for us to consider what it might be like to somehow suspend our judgments, or at the very least, find a way to make a more careful practice from them. Enter kindness. Remember this: it is not possible to judge someone and be kind to them at the same time. It is not possible to judge someone and be kind. Kindness is a choice. Choose kindness. Whenever in doubt, I promise you, that is a very good place to start. For years, I used to have this tagline on my email: humankind, be both. Over the years, many people commented, and many thought this was a cool kind of line, but very few read into those words the challenge they call us to be human, frail, fallible, grand and grandiose, and to be kind, caring, humble, just, and generous. Sounds like a simple enough recipe, but this is definitely not a cake to be left out in the rain. In fact, here's your altar call. I challenge you to be judgment-free. I challenge you to create around you a judgment-free zone for just 24 hours. Do you think you could do it? Of course, the trick is, if you fail, you have to start over again the next day. I'm starting over on my 8th day. I challenge you to the practice of unjudging you. If you do try this practice, if you do take up this challenge, please tell me what happens, whether you make it or not. And I promise not to judge you. It's by you telling me things that I get such great stories about things like the kindness of strangers who will never see each other again, but who stepped up to an ordinary moment to do something extraordinary. Stories of people using good judgment to make the moment matter. Stories of people like you who want to live into life's fullest challenge. Nathan Lewin's mother made his father promise that if Hitler crossed the border into Poland, they would immediately try to escape. In September of 1939, Nathan, then 3 years old, was carried in the night through the forest to Lithuania. There, a Dutch diplomat told the Lewins that they would need a visa to travel. They had heard of a Japanese diplomat named Sugihara. He was meant to monitor German and Soviet troop movements under the guise of handling consulate affairs. So the Lewins hurried to the consulate, and with a Japanese transit visa, they would be allowed to take a train across Siberia and en route to Japan. Mr. Sugihara did not hesitate, said Nathan Lewin, now 85 years old. Mr. Sugihara didn't ask his superiors what he should do, and when they specifically told him not to give travel documents to Jews, he did it anyway. When the Russians invaded Lithuania, all diplomats were ordered to leave the country. Over the next month, Mr. Sugihara spent 20 hours a day writing some 2,000 visas for every Jewish person who showed up at his office. Famously, he continued to write the visas on the train platform as he was evacuated, and his train pulled away, and he continued to throw visas out the window. He didn't care if they were citizens of Germany, Lithuania, the Netherlands, or Portland. They were quite simply human beings whose lives were at stake and who had to be rescued. Years later, when asked why he did it, Mr. Sugihara said, "It is the kind of sentiment anyone would have when they actually see refugees and look them in the eyes, begging with tears streaming. One just cannot help but sympathize with them, and I knew somebody would surely complain about me in the future, but I didn't care. I thought this was the right thing to do." After spending more than a year as a prisoner of war in Europe, the Sugihara family returned to Japan. Then, many years later, in 1986, one of those 2,000 visa recipients tracked Mr. Sugihara down. And shortly before his death, Israel's Holocaust Memorial, Yad Vashem, honored the Sugihara family with the title of Righteous Among Nations. And today, descendants of those with Sugihara visas number between 40 and 100,000. Will any of us suspend judgment and find such heroic kindness for, say, Ukraine refugees? Are we not all refugees from someplace called other? Going deeper, not only are unusual pairings everywhere I look these days, but many of them have changed the course of history. Elizabeth Cady Stanton with Susan B. Anthony, Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, who met at the ages of 15 and 17, respectively, at the Woolton Parish Church. Yes, I did say church. Another unusual pairing came in the form of an internet celebrity and yours truly, me. Do you remember being told, "Be careful of what says free. Everything has a price tag," or so my inner Judge Jerry kept telling me? That was my initial reaction when I first saw the free hugs sign. What's the gimmick here? I wondered to myself. What is this guy really after? He only wants to get close enough to pick my pocket and my good nature. Such good nature I had, you see. On and on, incessantly, the inside voice went. Even though the free hugs guy was basically legit. You may remember the story. Guy goes to public square with a sign that says free hugs. People react by staring clear of said guy, except for the police, who harass and question and arrest him. But he presses on. Still, somehow, and seemingly despite themselves, people eventually began to give free hugs to this guy. And, as Paul Harvey used to say, this is the rest of the story. One man whose celebrity itself was as unlikely as his Free Hugs campaign came from Australia, wanting to see what people would do when encountering a sign that said Free Hugs, man set up his social experiment in downtown Sydney. As it turned out, Free Hugs signs started showing up in cities all across the globe, making man and his Free Hugs an internet sensation. He was even on Oprah. But not all the news was good. Back then, Time magazine carried the cover story, "Alabama student is disciplined for hugging a friend whose parent had just died." Leah Muir said her daughter was chastised and sent to detention for the hug, which contravened the school's zero-tolerance policy on physical contact between students. Officials at Prattville Junior High School said they were merely enforcing the school rules, but Muir says the school should have used some common sense. What do you think? And so it went that misjudgments and poor judgments sparked a national controversy over giving someone a hug. We haven't yet learned, and maybe still, we haven't yet learned to counter our Judge Jerrys and Judge Judys by reminding ourselves of our inherent worth and dignity. You are sacred. You are strong. You are beautiful. You belong. You are worthy. You are true. That's how you look in my view. To his credit, and unlike many of the influencers of today's self-branding YouTube culture, one man had a goal in mind. He used his Free Hugs fame to launch his Free Help campaign by bringing together people who could provide help to those in need of help, person to person, kindness to kindness, free of any agenda other than paying it forward. Free of any agenda other than paying it forward. My friends, it happens in the DMV, and it happens at home. It happens between friends and family alike. It happens between any two people and among the whole human library. Whether and how you judge the cover of the book always starts and ends with you. To criticize or cherish, to hate or to hug, to be human and kind is always a choice. Choose kindness. Unjudge you. Amen.
This week's offertory is for the Peace and Plenty Community Garden, which serves a highly diverse community of very low-income people of color, many of them immigrants from Laos, Bhutan, Burma, the Gambia, Liberia, Guatemala, and the Dominican Republic. This is a community-led and driven project that supplies participating families and area residents with a wide range of affordable, organically grown produce. It also empowers participants by giving them a way to help their families and community directly, and builds the environmental consciousness of people the environmental movement too often overlooks. This group embodies the spirit of 3 of UU's 7 principles: the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Friends, I invite you to give as generously as possible, and for all that you give, and all that you do, and all that you are, we thank you. The church annual meeting and annual financial meeting will be held Sunday, June 5th, immediately after worship in the auditorium. Members will elect officers and approve the budget for the next fiscal year. If you want to join the meeting by Zoom, please call the office and register with Nancy. And now for our final hymn, it's hymn number 318, We Would Be One.
Friends, if you're comfortable, I invite you to join hands for the benediction. Go in peace. Walk in the ways of truth, justice, and love. Let your living bless the world. Be kind, be well, be you. Shalom. Amen.
And now, if you'll join me in the chalice extinguishing that's printed in your order of service. We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.